Dave, as a leader, how do you think your team would describe your management style, and how do you think, or how do you hope that that style kind of influences Pennoni's culture?
Well, I would hope that they would say that I'm very collaborative, kind of a hands-on management style, management by walking around, again, talking to people. My door is always open. I always tell my staff that. My door is always open if there's something they want to talk about, whether it's about the company or if there's an opportunity where I can help them in their career.
Did you know that nearly 70% of employees say that their engagement at work is directly influenced by their manager's leadership style? That's right. Leadership isn't just about guiding projects. It's about shaping the very culture that drives people's motivation and satisfaction. In today's episode, I will be talking with Dave DeLizza, licensed professional engineer and president and CEO of Pennoni, about how his mentors, managers, and the leaders that he's dealt with in his career have really helped him to become the leader that he is. His journey is really a testament to the power of intentional leadership, and he's here to share insights that can inspire leaders and future executives in engineering and beyond. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano, and this is the Civil Engineering CEO. All right, now I want to welcome our guest for today. I should say welcome back our guest for today. Dave DeLizza is president and CEO of Pennoni. He's been on the podcast before. Dave, welcome back to the Civil Engineering CEO. How are you?
All right, Anthony, and thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, for sure. No, we love chatting with you. You always give us a lot of good insights. And maybe you could just start, for those listeners that maybe haven't seen you before, tell them a little bit about Pennoni, the type of work that you do there, and your role there at the company.
Thank you. So Pennoni is a 1,400 person engineering firm. We are headquartered in Philadelphia, which is where I sit. One thing that many people may not know is that we're an employee-owned company. We're very proud of that. We have 40 offices up and down the East Coast of the U.S., all civil engineering infrastructure, transportation, water, wastewater, mechanical, electrical, survey, planning, landscape architecture, variety of services to support our clients. We do about half public work and about half private work. And that split is something that's always helped us over the years, even through some downturns in the economy.
That's great.
My role as CEO, I became CEO in 2019. My role is basically to help the firm deliver the budget, make sure we're meeting bottom line, making sure we're taking care of our clients and the projects. And then, we're a growth-oriented company, so we do want to keep growing, and we've been doing that not only by hiring additional staff, but also through some merger and acquisition activity.
That's great. And I've known Dave for a while, and he is an engineer by background. That's what he grew up doing, engineering. And that's kind of where I want to go next, Dave. I think a lot of civil engineering professionals out there maybe look at their careers and say, hey, I want to be a high-level executive one day. I want to be a leader in a firm. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your journey from, the technical professional as an engineer up to the CEO spot. Just talk about maybe some of the challenges that you faced along the way and what that journey was like. Because I know that there's a lot of engineers that, to them, they see that as where they want to go.
Yeah, thank you. So, I attended Drexel University here in Philadelphia, and I joined Pennoni as a co-op student in 1976 on our survey crews. And then for my second and third co-op period, I again came back to Pennoni. And then I joined Pennoni in 1979 as a full-time staff engineer. And most of my work at that time was, doing a part of a project, maybe one task on a project. But then after I got my license, which was a couple of years later, I started to handle projects and clients. I was given the opportunity to develop my own client base. And I think the big thing for me was I just had so many people here that were willing to help me and push me in the right direction. So I went from handling projects, having some staff work for me. In the early 90s, I ran my own office, which was down in Absecon, New Jersey, right outside Atlantic City. I basically, in 2005, I became the firm's director of strategic growth, which gave me an opportunity to do new client development, as well as to do mergers and acquisitions. So I kind of, a lot of years obviously passed there. And my journey, Anthony, has been following the right people, always learning. We talked about, I'm a lifelong learner. I feel like I learn something new every day. I read a lot of books about famous people, history, biographies, and I think you can always learn from those things. I had the good fortune at Pennoni to have somebody like Chuck Pennoni to kind of follow. There are others here like Rick Piccoli and Tony Bartolomeo, Eric Flicker. I could probably name 25 or 30 mentors at the firm. But, what I always enjoyed was being with people. Many of the clients that I developed over the years are still personal friends to this day, still clients of the company. And so I'm a people person also. I think that's important just to develop personal relationships. And I see personal relationships as a way for many young engineers to just kind of grow their network of people, get known in the profession. Of course, you got to do good work and got to take care of your clients and their projects. But it's just a good way to get out there to meet people. And, in our business, there's so many opportunities to do that. There's civic organizations, there's technical societies, religious organizations, chambers of commerce and things like that that you can belong to help round yourself out while you're learning the business. In my case, obviously engineering. So my journey went from being the growth guy to being chief operating officer and eventually to being CEO. So, but along all of those differing responsibilities and all those years, it was always learning and learning how to work with people, learning how to solve problems. I mean, that's what engineers do. We solve problems. So, I think those who know me know I'm very passionate about our profession. You're a PE yourself and you know what it takes to get projects done. I think that's some things that guys like yourself and me have to kind of push on to the next generation.
Yeah, and I want to dig a little bit deeper on the mentoring piece of this because I think it is very important. And I'm a sports fan and I watch the NFL a lot, and they say a lot of times they get these young quarterbacks today that come out of college, and you could have the same person that goes to a team that has a terrible coach, not a great other quarterback to mentor them, and then you can get the same guy to go to an organization that has a great management, a great owner, and it's totally different. And I kind of feel the same in our world is that if you go to a company where you got a really solid manager, you got some mentors, like you rattled off a bunch of names there at Pennoni, I really think it matters in terms of the success of that professional. It sounds like from your career, it did matter, and having those mentors around you was a big help for you to becoming a leader. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I joined Pennoni, I think at the time when I joined as a co-op, I think we were about 40, 45 people.
Wow.
As I said earlier, now we're 1,400. So I'm one of the guys, and there are plenty of other guys and girls here who have benefited from the mentors of guys like Chuck Pennoni and others to kind of move up in the organization. As the organization grew, it became just a nice opportunity for many of us to grow with it and to get opportunities. So, many of our people today are still involved in mentoring. Some of the younger professionals are involved in ASCE or PSPE, whatever organization. We have several of our young people involved in the Young Professionals Forum at the Chamber of Commerce. So I myself, on a lot of occasions, Anthony, there's not a formal training thing that happens, but you see yourself following somebody and you see how they do things, how they deal with issues, and you kind of pick up traits of those people. And I think that's what I did. I kind of picked up, hey, I want this trait of Chuck Pennoni and this trait of Rick Piccoli or whoever else might have been in my corner to help push me along. And, you kind of develop your own style then. My
Mhm.
style now is I like to manage by walking around, talking to a lot of our young people about their career, about things that they're doing inside the company, visiting our offices, answering questions from our staff about, the future of the company and where we're going, or even about their future if there's an opportunity to help them. So we're very big on mentoring here, and I know many firms are. And I think today you have to be. You got to find the right people to kind of push the success of your company forward.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question too is because I know a lot of listeners here are managers in their organizations and their firms, and I want them to understand that the success of the people that report to them is very dependent on them, right? Like your ability to mentor someone, to guide them, to teach them, to give them opportunities, to challenge them sometimes and push them outside of their comfort zone. And I think we need to remember that as a leader, you have a lot of responsibility, but you can do a lot. And at the same time, someone could go to a company with a manager that just isn't good for them and isn't helping them, and they're going to leave, and it's going to affect their career. So I think that's an important thing for us to think about. And Dave, you also mentioned before that you started getting into your career and you started doing other things like building a practice, right? And communicating with clients. And I'm just wondering, did you feel like those were skills that you felt comfortable with? Did you have to really work hard at them? Because I know a lot of technical professionals, they really struggle with those skill sets and they feel that it really limits them in their ability to get into management and leadership. And I'm wondering how those skill set, those transitions were for you.
Well, that's a good question. I think what happens, Anthony, depends on the person on the other side that you're dealing with. Some people are very easy to deal with and to talk to, and you have one personality for them.
Right,
And then
right.
there's others, and they could be clients or mentors or whoever who may not be that easy to deal with. And you got to develop the personality for them. And I think I was always able to do both. I had a lot of clients who were very good to me. They became like family members. And I always kid my wife about this. I say, you've crossed that line from engineer client when, we were invited to some of their kids' weddings and things like that. Now they're personal friends. And that's the kind of relationship that we develop. So I think the learning experience, the more people you deal with, the more traits that you yourself develop. Everybody's personality is different. And our business, as you well know, is a people business. So you got to deal with all different types of clients and team members and other firms that you're dealing with. So, I think my answer to that is I just kind of developed it over the years by dealing with different people, different personalities.
Yeah, it's a good answer. And the reason I say that is because I think as engineers, we're always looking for the equation that we can type the numbers into and spit out the answer. But when it comes to people, there isn't an equation, to Dave's point. Everybody's totally different. So, really, the way that you need to get good at quote unquote people skills is interacting with different people, different personalities, different situations. And I think kind of like every time you do it, you get more comfortable with that. And you talk to someone else now. And now I dealt with someone who maybe isn't as open as this other person. And you start to like build up your toolbox, which it sounds like for Dave, his toolbox is pretty big at this point. He's got a lot of tools in it, but I think that's the big thing for engineers is we like things that we can plug in something and get an answer. And unfortunately, with people, it's not always that easy. It's a lot of trial and error, a lot of back and forth. And I think also, again, if you're thinking about leadership, you need to put your people in positions to have the conversations and try different things and let them get out there because that's again, Dave gave examples in his career. That's how you learn. Got to get out in the field. Like Dave said, he likes to walk around and talk to people because that's how you're going to get all those different experiences. And that's what's so important from my experience as well.
Yeah, some of us say Anthony have the same story where one of my mentors, Rick Piccoli, when I first got my engineering license, he says, "Oh, he was handling the client. I want you to come to this meeting with me. We're going to have dinner with the client." So I go to the meeting, and I go to the dinner, and we go to the meeting, and then the next month when the meeting comes up, he said, "I can't make it. You go get the client. You go to the meeting." And then the next month happened. "Oh, I can't make it." And I can tell you, there's probably 4 or 5 guys at Pennoni who have that same story. All the while, he was calling the client, say, "Hey, what do you think of the guy? Is he somebody you think you can work with?" And, that's how it happens. I mean, the client must have said, "Hey, he's an okay guy. We'll try him out." And again, I was lucky enough to be in those positions.
Yeah. Well, like we both kind of hinted already, I mean, you can only learn so much sitting behind your desk, right?
Yep.
You got to get out there. And if you have a leader like Dave's mentor there who's putting Dave in a position to see how he did with the client, get comfortable with the client, give them a challenge, give them an opportunity. You just have to push people sometimes the right way and you got to learn each person, but that's again, that's a part of leadership, putting kind of the right people in the right seats there. So, Dave, as a leader, how do you think your team would describe your management style? And how do you think or how do you hope that style kind of influences Pannoni's culture?
Well, I would hope that they would say that I'm very collaborative, kind of a hands-on. management style, management by walking around, again, talking to people. My door is always open. I always tell my staff that. My door is always open if there's something they want to talk about, whether it's about the company or if there's an opportunity where I can help them in their career, again, as others did for me way back when. And that's kind of the approach I take. It's no magic. It's just being available to people and sharing some of the wisdom, war stories, whatever you want to call it, with them to help in their career development.
Yeah, and I would say too, like as a follow up to that, by default, as the CEO or really any high level leader in the organization, your approach, like Dave just described his approach, or at least how he thinks his team would describe him, that's something that's going to be contagious, right? When you get back to culture, I mean, they're looking at the leaders of the organization that are setting the standard. It's almost like parents with their kids type of thing, right? You're going to kind of follow what you see. You're going to get used to it. You're going to build habits. So I think for any of you, whether you're a CEO or just you're leading a team, a department, a division, I think whether you realize it or not, you're setting the tone for them, and your actions, your conversations, the way you talk to people, they're kind of watching that, and they're going to build on that. And that's why I think it's so important, Dave, that you need to, as a leader, you're setting the tone.
Yeah. Yeah, let's face it, it's quite simple to do. You lead by example. There's no magic formula to follow. And on the other side, Anthony, the employees, they need to understand, okay, where do I want to go and how can this person help me? You know, what do they bring to the table? And if I can help them get to a certain point in their career, that's what I'm here to do. I can tell you, when I first became a licensed professional way back when in the early 80s, Mr. Pennoni said, okay, do you want to follow the management path or do you want to follow the technical path? I really didn't know how different the two were back then. Now I obviously do. But they ended up, he and others put me on the management path to managing clients, projects, people, eventually the financials of the company, of the different offices. And that's how I just kind of learned through in the organization.
Yeah. Again, Dave was given opportunities, right, to try things, to grow, and his mentors, his managers, they boosted him up. They gave him opportunities. They supported him, and that's a big part of your career development. Dave, you've been CEO for some time now. Talk to us about how your vision has evolved since you became CEO, and what key areas are you really focusing on to kind of drive the firm forward, grow the firm at this point in time?
So I became CEO on July 1st, 2019. Of course, early 2020, COVID hit. So I was basically in my first full year. And as we all know, things changed tremendously. So my vision was to be a growth-oriented company. It was kind of set back a bit because of COVID, but our teams came together, our operations teams, our support teams, and we kept it going. We kept projects moving forward, and we've done well with it. So my vision was to be growth-oriented, again, being an employee-owned company. The areas that we need to concentrate on, Anthony, again, being a civil infrastructure firm, transportation, water, wastewater, power. These are all the things that bode well for our business in the future. And they're the kind of things that we're trying to concentrate on to keep growing our business.
Absolutely. And when it comes to growth, mergers and acquisitions are a big part of Pennoni's growth strategy. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you approach identifying and integrating companies that align with Pennoni's values and vision? Because I know that's important to you, keeping them aligned and making sure you have the right fit.
So we get merger and acquisition opportunities in many different ways. Some come to us through our staff. I actually have one I'm working on now, which was an old Drexel friend of mine who asked about joining Pennoni. We have some brokers who specialize in the AEC business who help us to identify firms in different geographic areas. And then we have other brokers who specialize in our business who will present opportunities to us. Of course, then you might be one of a number of firms going after it, but at least we get a chance to look at some different companies. But, we've grown a lot through acquisitions. I should have the number, but probably more than half our offices came to us at some point through an acquisition. And we want to continue to grow those opportunities by looking at other geographic areas. such as Texas, or one of the issues we have right now is we're an East Coast firm and trying to look at other U.S. geography, moving west and Midwest to try to look at growth by acquiring firms in those areas. Again, recognizing that the competition right now is hot and heavy in the merger and acquisition business for AEC firms.
Hmm, interesting. So another question, a follow-up question to that on the whole idea of, well, just I guess growth in general, not necessarily specific to mergers and acquisitions, but we know that in the engineering world, the quality of our work is critical. We have a responsibility as licensed PEs. You're in charge of basically the safety of the public in a lot of these projects we work on. As companies grow fast, though, there's a little bit of a balancing act. We want to grow fast. We want to get more people in the door, but we also need to maintain the quality of the product that gets put out. So I'm curious, as a firm grows like Pennoni's growing, how do you kind of safeguard against the quality of what you're putting out? How do you kind of make sure that you can achieve that balance?
Well, I'll say this: our annual business goals are reputation, profit, and growth. And we always say we'll sacrifice profit and growth to make sure we keep reputation. And you know as well as I do, reputation is everything in this business, right?
Yep.
So I depend heavily on our operations teams who do a good job of watching what their staff are doing, working very closely with their clients. And that's how we kind of keep tabs on everything. If there's an issue where something goes wrong in a project, we were taught by Chuck Pennoni, get out there and fix it. We're in the construction business, and as you well know, things go wrong. So, be there, be available to your clients to help them fix something. And I think having a good client relationship is what helps when things go wrong with jobs. I always
Yes.
kind of joke that, hey, the client calls and say, hey, I'll give you 24 hours. Tell me what happened and tell me how you're going to fix it, as opposed to us getting a letter that we're getting sued or something like that. So,
Yeah. No,
uh,
for sure.
if you don't do quality work in this business, you're not going to survive. And you got to be responsive to clients' needs, responsive to the projects. And when issues come up, be responsive and get them fixed.
Yeah, and you kind of led me right into my next question because I wanted to ask you about client relationships. They are crucial in this business. What approach has helped you to kind of build and maintain lasting client partnerships and just relationships over the years?
I think it's being out and about, seeing people, meeting people, maintaining relationships with people that I've been working for 30 or 40 years. I joked about going to their kids' weddings, but we become friends. And I would like to say we're the engineer of choice because they know us very well. And we keep those kinds of relationships going. I think that's one of the opportunities that many young people in our business who want to move into management have today, is to keep relationships with people growing over the years, do good work. And, when people like you, they're going to call you to keep working with them. And I've always, you know, done my best to maintain good, positive relationships with all the clients that I've worked with over the years, whether it be in Pennsylvania or in New Jersey, or whatever geography I might have been working in. And that's something that we try to get our staff to really focus on, are those client relationships.
Yeah, and I think that's great because people, and from a business development kind of lesson for those technical professionals listening, people do business with people that are, one, good at what they do, but secondly, that they're comfortable with. And to Dave's point, the more you get to know people, you build a personal relationship. Like, you're not necessarily pitching them for engineering services, but when they come up, who are they going to think of? They're going to think
Right.
of you because, right, that's your relationship. That's who they become to know, basically.
Yeah, I'm on the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And we have 4 meetings a year. There's other functions that we have, but when I go to those meetings, there's 10 or 15 Pennoni clients there. So again, it's a good opportunity just to say hello to people and talk to them. And chances are that they might tell you about an upcoming project or need your help with something. So there's just that personal interaction that has always benefited me.
That's great. And that's actually another really good career lesson, is that you hear all the time that people say get involved in societies and associations, and I agree with that 100%. But what I hear even more is, don't just sign up as a member, get involved, right? Get on a committee, chair a committee, lead a committee, get on an advisory board, like Dave mentioned, because that's when you really build connections, you build relationships, you get to work on projects with people outside of your organization. And I would imagine, Dave, that that's happened to you in some of these leadership positions on these boards.
Yeah, Mr. Pennoni and others here always encouraged us to be involved in business organizations, technical, civic, religious, whatever it is that you felt you want to be involved with. And I think the important thing, Anthony, is the company always supported our people in that. We have a program here called Pennoni Gives, where our staff can be members of it or can be involved with an organization, and the company will donate funds to that organization. But one requirement is they have to be involved, be a director, be a volunteer. And that's a program that's been very well received by our staff. And they're the kind of things that we do to encourage people. And that's how kind of how you grow in life and in the profession.
That's great. I love that program. The company will support you, but they want to see you taking action and getting out there and getting involved, which is great. And I think really just kind of as we start to get towards the end here, one thing that I found that's been really interesting throughout my conversation here with Dave, and we've had him on the show before, is a lot of the things that we're talking about are kind of because of the strong habits and culture that have built up at Pennoni over the years from past leaders. And I think that that's an important lesson to learn because, a company doesn't get to be a certain way overnight, right? It's like Dave said, Chuck Pennoni, he could list 25, 30 mentors for him. He's now the CEO and he's probably mentoring other people and et cetera, right? And so on and so forth. And I think that that's really important because the leadership of an organization creates the habits that people exhibit day in and day out. And those habits get passed down to the next team and the next team. And that's what you see in the result of a very successful company that's went from 40 people when Dave started there to 1,400 and probably growing very fast right now. So, I think we lose some of these things in the world where everyone's going 200 miles an hour. But I think that with Dave, I think what you kind of, all of your answers to me today kind of portrayed the importance of long-term, strong habits, good culture, support in the organization all the way down the line from the beginning.
Yeah, I think you always have to think long term in everything you do. There's always short term setbacks, whether it's business or life, right? But you always got to think long term. And I think that has helped me tremendously. During your career, you have some struggles. There's just some stresses that you may have, but looking out on the horizon and just picking it up and doing the right thing and pushing forward is what helps. As I said earlier to you, be a lifelong learner. You should learn new things all the time. And many of us in our profession, we have continuing education and all that, which is great. But don't let that be the only thing you do, right? Be involved in the organizations. I like reading books about American history, about world history, about biographies about famous people in business or history or whatever. And I always consider that a good way to learn about people and things that have happened over the years. There's a lot of good books out there, you know, like David McCullough, the construction of
Yeah,
the
he's
Panama
got great
Canal.
books.
Yeah, there's some
He,
pretty neat books about how civil engineering works were built. So there's all kinds of neat things that you can learn in history and in our profession.
yeah, and I think David McCullough has a really good book about the Brooklyn Bridge as well, if I remember. I think I read that one as well. And I think what Dave said about the long term is a really important thing today because everybody, again, is going so fast. Everything is instantaneous. But you have to remember you're in this for the long term, and the idea of continuous learning and building good habits is going to help you in the long term, right? Even if you have a bad week, you have a bad day, even you have a bad project, it happens. They happen. You're not going to go through a career that long without having them. So Dave, just to wrap us up, for those civil engineers listening that are really striving towards becoming great leaders in their careers, managers, leaders, what kind of last piece of advice that you can share with them, just kind of overarching from your career, from your leadership journey that you've had?
So be a lifelong learner. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. I did it. There's guys like myself here who are willing to help, but you have to ask. Understand where you want to go and try to map out a plan to do that and see who can help you. In our business, you can go the technical route and be an engineer, or you can go the management route. right? But whatever route you decide to go, you just got to keep learning. If it's management, you got to learn the financial aspects of the business, operations, how to work with all the support functions. If you're going to be in engineering and typically get into projects, you're going to handle small projects. Hopefully they become bigger projects. So there should always be a learning opportunity in the things that you do as you go forward. And again, ask questions of people. I know sometimes our younger people think, oh, I'm afraid to ask. They might think I'm dumb or something, but don't be. There are plenty of people who are willing to help you, but you got to ask and push them. There are some people here who I have a regular monthly meeting with, and we talk about different things, whether it's in their region or in their divisions they're working in. But it's just an opportunity to share what's going on and to see, oh, I ran into that years ago. Here's what you should be doing, type thing. Again, like I said, I've learned from stories of my own as well as stories of others.
That's great. All great advice. And just one thing I'll say about the asking questions is, and Dave said it does happen where people are afraid to ask questions because they want to feel like they don't look like they're not smart. They don't know what they're doing. That also goes back to their manager or leader. Dave said earlier, has open door. He tells his team members, I'm open, come in and talk to me. I think you need to promote that as a manager and as a leader, and even tell people, listen, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I want to help you. I want to hear from you. I want you to keep growing. You need to set the tone for that to make people comfortable to engage in those conversations. So I think that's a really important point. I think a lot of people don't engage with their leaders today because they think they're too busy or they're too important, but you need to squash that out early on as a leader, and that's really important. All right, once again, Dave DeLizza. Dave is a licensed professional engineer, president and CEO of Pennoni. Dave, thank you so much once again for spending some time with us here on the Civil Engineering CEO.
Thanks, Anthony. Always great to be with you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dave. He is an awesome leader. I've known him for a long time, and he really does what he says he does. He's out there and he's leading by example. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel here. We do put out episodes like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.